cái hiểu hồn để đồ nó hồn để that.
And I sound like this.
That is surprisingly hard to do. Unlike donuts, which are unsurprisingly easy to approach, forwards or backwards. Donuts.
This is a donut.
Keep your eyes on them. Keep your eye on the donut, not the hole, is of course a David Lynch-ism.
Yes.
David Lynch, in case you missed it, recently caught a thought plane on an updraft of consciousness and left us to journey to another plane of magnificence, where he will no doubt befuddle people.
Moths were flipping and flying and like frogs.
Or make them very happy.
I want a pet monkey.
And we are left to watch only his vapour trail as he disappears onto that next level of existence. Valet David.
They say many things remain. It's just the body that's dropped.
But he will always be with us, through his work and through our memory, which is going to come up a lot in this episode. Keep your eye on the donut, not the hole. What does the donut represent? What about the hole? The donut is your work, obviously. Is it? The hole is the sucking void of distractions. You know, the nothingness, the unasked for commentary, the critique. There's opinions you don't need to hear in that hole. All sorts of hole-led bullshit. Donut. What's there? What's not there? Donut. Hole. Something like that. I love David Lynch. I love donuts.
Every day, once a day, give yourself a present.
I don't know what that means. Not knowing what things mean is a common theme around David Lynch.
It's not fair for me to say, oh, you didn't get it.
But I'm skipping ahead, because right now we are pulling up to the hot oil that will fry the donut of today's point, which is me semi-dissecting a thing I wrote, which is transcendentally related to David Lynch. Well, it gets to David Lynch in the end.
There's the donut and there's the hole.
And that's the journey we're going to go on as we talk about, as I talk about this little thing that I wrote called The Persistence of Donuts. Now, by calling it that, your mind may have instantly flashed to Dali's The Persistence of Memory. Understandable. She just ripped that off. I didn't rip it off. I riffed it off, or riffed off it. Different thing entirely. But also, fun fact, that was not the jumping off point for this post. Because way before David Lynch became involved, it was about something else entirely. And the backstory of me telling how it came about is roughly illustrative or demonstrative of how we can follow an idea, how it can start one place, and by following it and letting other things add to it, it can become something else entirely in a different place. It's the beauty of creativity. Get on with it. Donuts, time, memory, ants. Huh? Keep up. Let's follow the donut. Donut. Hey, I'm just flicking puzzle pieces at you from another room. Eventually, you'll put the whole puzzle together. That's a David Lynch deep cut. If you know, you know. Donut. It all started with this. This is an in-store reel-to-reel recording played in Kmart's in 1973. You weren't expecting that, were you? Caught you off guard. Anyway, I found this story about this Kmart reel-to-reel, the full 2-hour recording of which had been uploaded to YouTube. This is just some random Kmart footage that I'm playing under it while you listen to just the glory of it. I was listening to it, and then all of a sudden, I was back there in Kmart, in Tamworth, New South Wales, Australia. I must have been, let's say 12. I think I was in year 7. I was with my mother in Kmart, buying my first training bra. We were in the change room area, and I was in the little cubicle by myself. I think she was trying to bulldoze her way in, but I wouldn't let her. She wanted to teach me how to use it. I was like, no, I can work it out. I can remember looking at myself in the reflection of the change room mirror. It's a pretty strong memory. We bought 2, pastel blue one, and then I think like a nude coloured one. My first 2 training bras. It's exciting times. Anyway, listening to that tape, it was as if I was there, in that room, at that time. Small me, childhood me, in Kmart, this must have been 80-something, early 80s. And I got there, in that little change room, by listening to that recording. It took me right there, right back. Amazing. An idea. I should write a thing about the transportative power of memory and how it can be triggered by objects. All it takes, sight, sound, smell, there you are. Wow. So that's the initial sprinkle. I let that memory take my brain's hand and lead it around. This is already starting to sound a little David Lynchian.
It wasn't there, and then it's there.
Again, I'm jumping ahead. We're still not at David Lynch.
No.
Patience. I followed the thought. Follow. Fish, fish. Sprinkle, sprinkle. Little star. Snap. That's when the title came in. The Persistence of Memory. Ripped off. Sorry, did I say ripped off? Riffed off Dali's painting, The Persistence of Memory. Just the title, though. Sometimes I find if you have the title to something and not much of an idea, the title itself can be the very thing that gives you the inspiration. Like, you can build a lot on just a title. And Persistence of Memory, it tied in perfectly, because here am I saying there's all these objects in the world and times and locations and places and smells and sensations that instantly transport you back to a time and a place. It's persistence of memory. I mean, why don't you over-explain it, Janeen? No, I won't. Let's move on. Memory, persistence of it, the powerful force of objects transporting us back to a place or a person we once were. Follow, down, sprinkle, thinking, fish. And then the news came through. David Lynch died. The trail of sprinkles I was following changed direction in that moment. The fish pivots. My daydream changed direction, became David Lynch-shaped. And that's actually where the donuts came into it. I know I've been talking about donuts all this time, but that's primarily because I started thinking about donuts after the announcement, where they actually put in the quote.
We should keep our eye on the donut and not on the hole.
You can see how this all comes together. Anyway, I followed the fish of an idea as it changed colours, its scales becoming the sheen of a glazed donut.
Bullshit.
I sure am mixing up my metaphors and my symbolism, and I should stop it. No, I will not. When someone you admire dies, in that moment and the moments after, things rush at you. If they had any influence in your life, it's the lessons they taught you, it's the work that they did, it's what you got from their presence in your life. All in that one moment. To me, David Lynch's is playful. Dark, sure. Confusing, sometimes. Surreal. Absurd.
What the hell?
But playful, imaginative, inventive.
Beats the hell out of me. I gotta think about it for a while.
Curious. You know, you hear him speak and he's just, I don't know, he seems so tickled by life, by the absurdity of it, by the reality of it, by the confusion of it, by the potential of it. He let his mind go places that, other people might look at and say, that's a weird mind to go there.
Some inane, bizarre person with a disturbed mind wrote that film, and I did not enjoy it.
Sure, weird. That's a word, I guess.
It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
But above all, I think, curious. Regardless of what you thought about him or his work, he was curious about life. He was a seeker.
Fucking morons everywhere.
And so my little thing about memory and how objects are powerful in that they can transport you to another place and another you, it kind of morphed into something different. Related, but different. It sort of became a eulogy, but I think through me working through my thoughts about David Lynch, it became a bit of a rally cry for thinking, for living that quote of keeping your eye on the donut, which is why it became the persistence of donuts. It had to be, really. And so I took the initial idea, the one about childhood memory, and I mixed in a little bit of David Lynch spirit.
Massive quantities and a glass of water, sweetheart. My socks are on fire.
And the quote about donuts. And I thought about a different kind of memory. Not the memory of being transported to childhood, but the memory of how we think when we are children. The unfiltered and unrestrained play of the childhood mind, of imagination.
Inside, we're ageless.
Like David Lynch, the lack of fear in going to there, in your thinking, and donuts. This is a line from the piece that I wrote, which I think sums up that thought. Are you ready? Playful as a donut, free as a bubble, imagination as loose and wild as a jar of sprinkles. This is the power of childhood thinking. Not childish thoughts, but childlike thinking. Does that make sense? That's how I want my mind to operate, to be as playful as a donut. When we're young, I think we're probably more open to the idea of sprinkles.
And they say when you're little, the window is open.
Metaphorically, of following the trail to the sweetness of the donut. And when I'm talking about donuts, I'm talking about ideas or the work of the idea.
Ideas are so beautiful and they're so abstract.
I have gone full donut at this point. To be clear, I don't want to be a child again. I was a pretty ridiculous child. But I do want to be able to access the ability to feel unrestrained. I want to be able to access the child's thought process, but with the advantage of having the adult's brain to interpret it. Use the tool of the child, but process it as an adult. I don't know if I could list everything that I've learned from David Lynch over the years.
Well, something isn't finished until it's finished.
Not in a concrete way, but I have admired and absorbed as much as I can.
Stay alert. Do your work. Don't worry about the world going by. It doesn't mean that you can sit around and not do anything. You've got to get your butt in gear and do it.
From his lessons.
And think your way through. Have the experience and trust your inner knowing of what it is.
He was the best mentor I'd never met.
Who gives a fucking shit how long a scene is?
And
walk away from suffering and negativity and party time.
when I was first getting into transcendental meditation, and I don't know if this happens to everyone, there was a moment where I thought, is this a cult? And I dug into it a little, and David Lynch somewhat assuaged my fears.
Pure bliss consciousness.
I mean, it might be a cult, and if it is, I'm fine with it. There's no robes, so that's a good thing. Anyway, the thing that I wrote is kind of a distillation of a bunch of feelings and things I learned from my exposure to David Lynch's work, his philosophy, and his life.
And it explodes like it's got electricity and light connected to it, and it has all the images and the feeling, and it's like in an instant you know the idea. In an instant.
It's obvious I smashed together a lot of things in the persistence of donuts. I make no apologies. The memory of a childhood mind at play, the playful mind of David Lynch, the surrealist flow and the melting of time. Oh shit, I didn't even talk about that. The persistence of memory is, of course, a painting by Salvador Dali. It's the Melting Clocks painting, this one. I saw it once at the MoMA. It's the size of a diploma. That shocked me. It was so large in my mind, bigger than life. But no, it's small. Anywho, you can't look at that painting without thinking about the surrealist movement, about reality and alternate universes, about time and how it melts away. Is it a nightmare or a languid expression of a dream? The mind fighting against time and decay. How we perceive our dreams could be seen as correlating a little bit to how we perceive our ideas, what we do with them, how we interpret them. And that's why I smashed in some ants with my donut talk and some Dali imagery. I mashed in some vision of camembert melting in the sun, which Dali said was his inspiration for the soft clocks. Now I want some cheese. I prefer a brie to a camembert. Anyway, there's an obvious connection between time and memory and dreams. I mean, these are all David Lynch themes. Surrealism and, to some degree, absurdity, symbolism, ladies with logs, ears in a field. But above all, the wonder of the dream, of dreaming, of daydreaming.
It's daydreams that I love.
Of thought, of ideas.
But at a certain point, the dream takes over.
A huge percentage of what you catch as you're fishing or following sprinkles or making donuts or whatever you're doing will be unusable. Just sprinkles that don't become anything. But every now and again, the sprinkles find their donut. the point. Eyes on the donut. Ignore the hole. Make sure your donut gets its time in the showcase. That's probably the final goal. I have lots of favourite David Lynch quotes, but I was watching the masterclass the other day, and I think this is my new favourite David Lynch quote.
When it comes time to writing, I like to write.
Just get to work. Find that donut, or catch that big fish. Fades out. Let's fade back in. I feel like I haven't taught you anything this week, and usually I try to pepper in some educational things, but this was all just highfalutin talk about memory and following ideas and philosophy in some regard. But I feel that with someone like David Lynch, who was a seeker, it's up to you to seek him out. The best thing about David Lynch is discovering David Lynch, watching the movies and the TV shows and watching them and going, what the It's a wonderful journey. So let me close, for real this time, by reading the closing paragraphs of the thing I wrote, which I would very happily read to you at the link below. I wrote this. If a black hole is the absence of light, a donut hole is the absence of hope. Find hope. Faith in yourself, in your brain, in the weird. Find an ear. Carry a log. Replace your head with an eraser. Be a blue box and a key in your search for meaning. It may mean something, or it may mean nothing, and sometimes it will mean both. Frustrating. Play hide and seek. Hide the doubt, seek the donut. Persist in the seeking of. I rest my case. See you in the next life, David Lynch.
In the future, please leave a plate of black coffee out for me. Also in the past.
Everyone, have a great day.